Good morning, all the students. Let's continue with where we have left out yesterday. We started to discuss on MapReduce, right? How does a MapReduce framework actually work? Okay, we understood that MapReduce is a programming model for performing the data processing. If you want to process any data, if you want to count the number of word occurrences in a text, or if you want to know the maximum temperature recorded across the country in a particular year, or if you wanted to analyze the performance of number of students in the country based on their gender, like that. If you want to analyze huge volumes of data, then that can be efficiently tackled by this MapReduce framework. It is very efficient at handling large volumes of data, right? Not like other programming languages. Other programming languages has a limit. They can't perform better beyond a particular volume of data. But MapReduce doesn't have any such boundaries. It doesn't have any such rigidity. Okay, it tries to accommodate for more and more amounts of data. So let us once again quickly recap what we have covered in yesterday's class and then go further. Okay, in yesterday's class we have seen a word count example where the input text is taken, and according to the MapReduce framework, the input text or any input file is divided into smaller units called as data chunks or input splits, right? Data is split into smaller units. Data is split into smaller parts where the data is passed on to different machines, okay? Rather than using the entire file and handing it over to one single machine and making it perform the entire processing task. Understand, here we are using very small amount of data to perform the analysis task, to count the number of words in the occurrence, to count the number of occurrences of a word in a given text. That is very small example. But in the real time, we try to analyze large volumes of data. In such cases, splitting the data into data chunks, smaller units, and assigning it to multiple machines can speed up the task by making it work simultaneously on different machines, on distributed machines. Okay, so when the input is split, it will be mapped onto multiple machines in order to perform some task. Here, what is the task? To count the number of word occurrences. Now, this is the input split given to one single machine, which counts the word occurrences. Again, this is the input split given to another machine, which again counts the number of occurrences. What is happening here? The same task is being performed, but is being performed in a distributed manner by getting the work distributed across the machines, right? So this map task will manage the input splits mapped to those machines and performs its task locally. Okay, so the task of counting the number of words is done here. Now, as it is, we can't give that key value pair as input to the reducer. Understand that any map task or reducer task will take the input and give the output in the form of keys and values. The input taken by map phase or reduce phase and the output given by map phase, which serves as input to the reduce phase, and further the output given by reduce phase, all will be transferred in the form of key value pairs. Okay, now when we are using this key value pairs, we can't use them as it is. We have to perform some kind of shuffling. When you are giving the output of map phase, here the number of words, the number of word counts, here we can't give the output of this map phase as it is to the reducer phase. Some pre-processing has to happen. Here what is the pre-processing? Now some shuffling will happen such that same type of content falls into one particular, same type of content can be given as input to one reduce phase running on one single machine. Okay, so here bad is taken into one group, and the number of the count of class is taken into another group, count of good is taken into another group, count of Hadoop is taken into one another group. Okay, so this kind of shuffling and sorting happens such that same type of content is grouped and passed as input to the reduce phase. Again, remember, reduce is a function that is being executed by multiple machines at the same time. Map is a function being executed by multiple machines, and again, they give some output which can be taken as input to reduce phase, again run on multiple machines. Okay, now this reducer phase will implement some program, say written in Java as a reduce class, will count the number of occurrences of that particular word. In this case, you can see clearly Hadoop is counted and its frequency is counted as 3. Here is frequency is counted as 2, and rest of the words are also counted. Now all the reducer phases outputs are consolidated to give the final output. All the machines on which the reducer task is being run will give their outputs, which will be consolidated further again by the reducer to give the final output, or to give a comprehensive result, which gives us a consolidated result. Okay, so here you can see the final output. Now, whenever we ask you to explain about MapReduce framework, rather than taking very big examples, you can take this toy example and explain us very clearly in the exam. Okay, we doesn't see what example you have taken, but we see how good you explain the process of this MapReduce job being executed. Now we have also seen a weather data set by NCDC, that is National Climatic Data Center in USA, where data has been captured, meteorological data has been captured through the sensors deployed at various weather stations. Okay, and we have seen the format of data that has been captured with respect to humidity, with respect to wind speed, with respect to temperature, sky ceiling height, see-through capacity, means the visibility when the fog exists. Lots of meteorological measurements have been captured by various sensors deployed at different locations. Right now, for simplicity of understanding, we haven't taken all those meteorological measurements. We have taken only temperature, and we framed a question to know what is the maximum temperature in a particular year that is captured across the weather stations in this National Climatic Data Center. Right? For that, I have explained you how the actual data that is captured looks like. It is a semi-structured and record-oriented data. Why we call it as semi-structured? They are captured as line-oriented data. They're captured as row-oriented data, but there is no particular demarcation between the columns. You don't have any separate demarcation like temperature, air humidity, air pressure, or the sky ceiling height. There are no specific demarcations. There are no delimiters which tells us that this measurement pertains to this particular meteorological element, or this part pertains to this meteorological element. We don't have such demarcations. There are no commas or tabs or full stops which tell us that up to this there is one measurement, up to this another measurement is captured. Okay, it is just captured as a single row of data, single record, by just taking the offset. Say if the first record starts at offset 0, all the numbers are combined together without the help of any delimiters. Now again the next record starts at say offset 24. All these are captured as a single line. Again, some other record starts at offset 57. Again, it is captured as a single record. So we have only the help of an offset to know that the next record starts. Okay, so the data we have is in the form of rows, but we don't have any column specific demarcation between the data. That is why it is called as semi-structured data. Now we also understood about the data format very clearly. The data we are now going to use for understanding how the analysis task is performed by MapReduce is taken from this National Climatic Data Center dataset. And since there are tens of thousands of weather stations, the whole dataset is made up of a large number of relatively small files. And we also understood what is the disadvantage of large number of relatively small files. First of all, the name node will be overcrowded with the amount of metadata that it has to maintain with respect to large number of relatively small files. So we have to convert this into small number of relatively large files so that tackling the data, handling the data will be much easier for us. Okay, so this large number of relatively small files we are trying to make as small number of relatively large files so that the processing task can be made much quicker. Now it's generally easier and more efficient to process a smaller number of relatively large files. So the data was pre-processed. For doing this, in order to convert large number of relatively small files into small number of relatively large files, you have to perform some pre-processing. You have to tweak the data here and there in order to bring them into a small number of large files. Right? So so the data was pre-processed so that each year's readings were concatenated into a single file, so that every year's readings from all the weather stations can be put into a single file. So 1990 data, you can have all the weather stations data, 1991 all the weather stations data, 1992 and so on up to 100 years per year data across all the weather stations that are captured through the sensors deployed at those particular areas that can be taken. Now we have in our hand very small number of large files. Okay, hardly we have how many files? 100 files. See, initially we have across the weather stations lots of records that are captured in a particular year. Now, because of the pre-processing task we have performed, that data is brought into 100 files. 1990 across all the weather stations, what are the measurements? 1991 across the weather stations, what are all the measurements that are captured? Okay, we are able to bring it down into 100 files across 100 years about all the weather station measurements that are captured. Now, what is the question we are trying to answer? What is the highest recorded global temperature for each year in the data set? Okay, this is the question to be answered by by processing the data that is given to us. But if we use Unix tools like AWK, AWK is a tool that is used to process line-oriented data. This name is drawn from the inventors of this tool, the first initials of the inventors of these tools. Okay, A, W, and K. 3 inventors designed this tool. That is why their initials are drawn to make this tool's name, AWK. We generally call it as awk. Now, the classic tool for performing line-oriented data processing in Unix is AWK. But awk script extracts two fields from the data. Yes. What we are interested in? We are interested in a temperature, and we are interested in whether that temperature is captured properly or not by examining the quality code. If it is 1, the data is properly captured. If it is 999, then the data has some error. The data is erroneously captured, right? So when we use Unix tools, it starts analyzing the data line by line. but to find the maximum temperature for each file and then the complete run for the century, for the entire 100 years data, it will take 42 minutes in one run on a single elastic compute cloud if you take extra large instance of high CPU performance. Though you work simultaneously, though you take a single elastic cloud compute, let us not go for simultaneous processing still. If we take a single elastic compute cloud with high CPU, extra large instance, maximum capacity of a single machine, if you are trying to use, still it takes 42 minutes, around 42 minutes in order to process this 100 years data. Okay, so to speed up this processing task, we need to run parts of the program in parallel. Whenever I say MapReduce framework, it should strike in your mind it is used for parallel processing. It is used for distributed processing of the data. Okay, now to speed up this processing, which takes 42 minutes by using Unix tools, we can go for an alternative, that is to run parts of the program in parallel. We should go to run parts of the program in parallel, simultaneously. Instead of a single thread of processing, we have to start multiple threads of processing in order to perform the analysis task. Now, we could process different years in different processes, fine, using all the available hardware threads on a machine. But there are few problems with this. We have also gone through these problems that may be encountered. First, dividing the work into equal size pieces isn't always easy and obvious. It is not a straightforward task. And second, combining the results from independent process may need further processing. You may have to write extra scripts in order to process the end results. Now, third, you are still limited by the processing capacity of a single machine. And if multiple machines are used, coordination and reliability problems arise. You may have to work extra overhead of coordinating between multiple machines and whether all the machines are working fine or not. If one machine fails or if data on one machine gets corrupted, how would you ensure that the final result is reliable? These are all overheads when you start working, when you start running parts of the program in parallel. Now, using a framework like Hadoop to take care of these issues is of great help to us. Okay, now let us see how this task is accomplished by MapReduce. MapReduce works by breaking the processing into two phases, the map phase and the reduce phase. Okay, the task is divided into two parts, the map phase and the reduce phase. Now each phase has key value pairs as input and output. So the map phase as well as the reduce phase takes inputs as key value pairs, give the output as key value pairs, which is again taken as input by the reduce phase as key value pair, and again finally it gives the output as key value pair. So the data passed between the map phase and the reduce phase is passed in the form of key value pairs, right? Each phase has key value pairs as input and output, and the types of which may be chosen by the programmer. How these key value pairs has to be formed, that can be customized by the programmer. It is not the same for all types of programs, right? They have to be customized. In what way the data has to be selected so they form the key and the value pair, that can be customized by the programmer. Now the programmer also specifies two functions, the map function and the reduce function. Okay, the programmer has to write two different functions. One is to perform the map task and the other one is to perform the reduce task. Now the input to our map phase is what? Now we are starting to analyze the National Climatic Data Center's data in order to find out what is the question that we need that the analysis process need to answer what is the maximum temperature in a particular year that is recorded. Okay, so the input to our map phase is the raw NCDC data, which is semi-structured data, which is record-oriented data, which is line-oriented data. It doesn't have proper demarcations between the measurements that is taken. Now, how to write map function for this? Our map function, let us design it as simple as possible. Now, we pull out the year in which the measurement is taken, and the air temperature, because these are the only fields we are interested in. We made the problem as simple as possible in order to understand it at a smaller scale. Initially, we saw that many meteorological elements have been captured by the sensors deployed at various weather stations in the country, which make this NCDC dataset. But to understand how a MapReduce framework actually works, we made the problem as simple as possible, such that we are interested now in only finding out the air temperature, maximum air temperature that is recorded in a particular year. Right? Every year, not in a particular year, every year, what is the maximum temperature that is recorded across the weather stations? Okay, so we pull out the year and the air temperature because these are the only fields we are interested in to keep the problem as simple as possible. Now the map function is just a data preparation phase. Understand this, map function is just a data preparation phase, setting up the data in such a way that the reducer function can do its work on it. Now, can you pass the raw data as it is to the map phase and the reduce phase? No. Map and reduce phases doesn't understand the raw data unless it is passed as key value pairs. So you have to perform some data preparation task in order to pass it in the form of key value pairs to the map phase, which further perform some more processing of the data so that the reducer phase can quickly act on it to give its consolidated result. Okay, so the map function is just a data preparation phase, setting up the data in such a way that the reducer function can do its work on it, that is finding the maximum temperature for each year. For each year, it compares the temperatures captured at various weather stations and picks out the maximum temperature. Right? Now the map function is also a good place to draw bad records. We can also treat map function as a say inspector which tries to drop some bad records if the data is erroneously captured, or if there is some corrupted data, then such kinds of records can be dropped at this map phase itself. So you can perform a quality check. You can just try to compare the quality code. If it is equal to 1, it is a good record. If it is equal to some other number other than 1, it is a bad record. Like that, you can drop the bad records at this stage. Now, to visualize the way the map works, consider the following sample lines of input data. Now, when I explained you about the data format of NCDC data, we have given you a clear definition of what all the measurements that are taken, but actual raw data looks like this. It is just captured as lines of data, line-oriented data, record-oriented data. All the measurements are just taken as series of numbers. So at this stage, you need to take the help of domain expert in order to prepare the key value pairs. They are only the people, domain experts are the only people who can guide you to understand which part of this raw data actually represents a temperature, actually represents a quality code, actually represents the offset in the file, actually represents the air pressure, or many other such measurements. Okay, so once you take the help of those domain experts, they'll tell at this point you can locate a temperature, at this point you can locate the year in which it is captured. Okay, after that, these lines Once you gain that knowledge, these lines are represented to the map function as a key value pair. Now you write a program, you write a Java program to pick out that year in which the air temperature is captured and air temperature along with its quality code. Okay, so how are these key value pairs prepared? Understand this carefully. This first part, the key part, is the offset in the file. Means this entire line oriented data or record oriented data starts at the offset 0 in that particular file. Okay, that is the location in the file. Now the next record starts at the file location 106. Its offset is 106. Next record starts at 212. Next record starts at 380. Okay, sorry for the disturbance. Just try to rejoin. 1 second. Share the screen. Right. So these lines, the raw data that is taken from NCDC data set, these lines are represented to the map function as key value pairs. Can you see the presentation, students?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Okay. So these are the key value pairs. The key represents the offset where the file starts in the data set, and these are the value pairs. Now, what is the task here? We need to pick the year in which the temperature is captured and what is the A temperature. Okay. So you can see this highlighted area. This is the year in which the temperature has been captured. First three readings are taken in 1950 and next two readings are taken in 1949. Again, you can see here this part contains the temperature. Now you should be very careful here. Again, in this part, only this part represents the temperature. This part represents the temperature, followed by a number 1 indicating the quality code. If it is followed by 1, it says that the measurement is correct, appropriately captured. If it is followed by a different number, something like 999, then it indicates that the measurement is erroneously captured. Right? So you take here, in 1950, in the first record, the temperature is 0. Again in 1950, in the second record, the temperature is plus 22. Again in the third record, in 1950, the temperature is minus 11. It is in negative degrees. So the temperature has fallen down, maybe because it is winter. And in 1949, you can see the temperature as plus 111. It is very high. Maybe it is deployed in a desert area. So the day temperature might have been quite higher. And in this case, it is plus 78, right? These are the 8 temperatures that have to be picked. So you can write a Java program which can indicate that this is the offset, and after these many characters in the string, pick out the year, and after again a substring, pick out the temperature. Like that, you can write a simple Java program to extract whatever you are interested in from the raw data that is supplied by the NCDC dataset. Okay, now the keys are the line offsets within the file, what we have seen, which we ignore in our map function. Now the map function is not interested in analyzing the offset of the record. It is just interested in which year, what A temperature that has been read by the sensor, right? So the map function merely extracts the year and the A temperature and emits them as its output. So it tries to omit the offset and considers only two parameters, that is the year in which the A temperature is recorded and what is the exact A temperature. Okay, now based on this processing, what is the output that is generated by the map function? The year and the A temperature in that year. 1950, 0 degrees. Again 1950, 22 degrees. Again in 1950, minus 11 degrees. 1949, 111 degrees. And again 1949, 78 degrees. This is in the form of key value pairs. Did you observe this? Again, the map function, it received the data in the form of key value pairs, that is the offset and the raw data, the line oriented data, and it emitted the data in again key value pairs, this time giving us only the salient parameters, only the parameters that we are interested in, right? So it has taken these values. These are the outputs to be given to the reducer phase. But are these outputs given as it is? No. The output from the map function is processed by the map reduce framework before being sent to the reduce function. The output of the map function are not as it is passed as input to the reduce function. They are little bit processed and given to the reducer function so that reduce function can efficiently consolidate the results. Now this processing, what does this pre-processing does? It sorts the data, it sorts the values and groups them in a meaningful manner. It sorts the records, it sorts the key value pairs and groups them such that the key and groups the key value pairs with respect to the key. Okay, so this processing task involves sorting and grouping the key value pairs based on the key. Now what is the key here? Year. Now according to 1950, it will create a list of all the temperatures that are captured in 1950. Again in 1949, it will create a list of temperatures that are captured in 1949. Right? That is how the pre-processing task takes place. Now, what are the key value pairs that can be given as input to the reducer phase? You will have a key value pair like this, 1950, along with the list of all the temperatures captured in 1950. Again in 1949 is the key value, and its associated value contains the list of all the temperatures captured in 1949 across the weather stations. Right? Now this is the input that can be received by reduce phase. Now did you observe how we are transforming the data? Initially the input to the map phase is offset and the record oriented data, which will give out the output from the map function as this data. Now this data is pre-processed in such a way that you can consolidate all the recordings in 1950 and all the recordings in 1949, means year-wise recordings you are trying to put into a key and list of value pairs. Now this is given as input to the reducer phase, which finds out the maximum temperature in a particular year. So it will run a sort function, or it will run a maximum, finding the maximum number function, which will find out the maximum reading in this list and maximum reading in this list. Okay, now let us see. So continuing with the example, a reduce function sees the following input. As I told you, in 1949, the list of all the recordings. In 1950, the list of all the temperature recordings are taken as input to the reduce phase, as input to the reduce function. Now all the reduce function has to do is now iterate through the list. Go to this element, check whether it is maximum temperature. Yes, if it is maximum temperature, make it as maximum, and make it as maximum temperature encountered so far, and that maximum temperature is again compared with the next recording. If it is greater than that, that temperature is taken as the maximum temperature so far. If it is lesser, then that will be retained as the maximum temperature. You know how to find maximum element in an array, right? Same program you write here in order to find the maximum temperature in a particular year. Now the reduce function has to do now is iterate through the list, go through the list one element after other element and pick up the maximum reading. Now after this process is done, in 1949 it will locate the maximum temperature. In 1950 also it will locate the maximum temperature. And this is the final result that is given as output by the reduce phase. And that is what we are interested in, right? In every year, what is the maximum temperature recorded across the weather stations that are recorded by the sensors deployed at those weather stations, right? In a particular country, we are trying to find out. Now in 1949 we knew the highest air temperature. In 1950 also we got the highest air temperature that is recorded. So the whole data flow is illustrated in this figure now. Let us just consolidate all our understanding in the form of this figure. Initially, you have the raw data which is transformed into key value pairs. Here the key is the file offset and the value is the record oriented data. Now from this, the map functions fetches the year and the corresponding air temperature recorded in that particular year. Now this map function, the output of this map function is pre-processed by a shuffling stage. Shuffling is like a mediator between map and the reduce phase. Now in this shuffling stage, it performs some pre-processing such that every year's all the air temperature records are available at a single place. Now 1949's readings are taken, given to one reduced phase. 1950's recordings are taken, given to another reduced phase. Another reduced phase in the sense another machine. Okay, so 1949 data is given to one machine, 1950 data is given to another machine, 1970 data is given to another machine, such that all these machines work simultaneously with a reduce function in order to find out the maximum of these readings for each particular year. Okay, so in 1949, this problem is very simple for us, right, to understand. In 1949, it is the maximum temperature is located, and in 1950, the maximum temperature is located by the reduce phase. Now, this reduce phase further gives the consolidated output. That is, in 1949, the maximum temperature recorded. In 1950, the maximum temperature recorded. Right? This is the logical data flow in a map reduce job. How exactly the data is processed in the form of key value pairs to give the final consolidated result, which answers our initial question. What is the question here? What is the maximum maximum temperature recorded every year? And that is answered by the end of this map reduce task. Now in the next coming session, let us see how to write map and reduce programs in order to perform a map reduce task using Java programming language. Students, you have any doubts still here? Did you understand the concept well? Lata?
Yes, ma'am.
Ambrish?
Yes, ma'am.
Bhargavi?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, though you students are absent for one class, I'll always give a quick recap of the previous class and then start that day's class. So you will not have any disruption in understanding the concepts. Okay, though you miss one class, you need not be desperate. You can still keep the flow of the classes. You can be still stay tuned with the classes, right? Okay, I'll end this recording. Meet you in the next class. Stay back, I'll take attendance.